Hello, and welcome to Infidelity Tales Lab. Your support means everything to us. We'd love to know, which geographical location are you joining from today? At home? On the go? Share with us below. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Architect. Vincent Riker sat in his basement workshop, meticulously crafting the miniature model of what would become Sullivan Plaza. His weathered hands moved with surgical precision as he attached the final piece to the scale model. The clock on the wall read 2:17 a.m., another late night, but he was accustomed to them. The basement walls were lined with architectural awards, certificates, and blueprints, evidence of 20 years devoted to his craft. Yet none of his colleagues at Sullivan Development knew the full extent of his genius. Not even Howard Sullivan, his father-in-law and boss of 15 years, appreciated the brilliance behind Vincent's designs. Still working? Naomi's voice startled him. His wife of 12 years stood at the bottom of the stairs, her silk robe loosely tied, amber hair cascading over her shoulders. Beautiful as always, even at this hour. Almost done. Vincent gestured to the model. The presentation's tomorrow. Naomi approached, studying the intricate design with practiced admiration. Howard will love it. He'd better, considering how many nights it's stolen you from me. Her fingers brushed his shoulder, a touch that once ignited passion but now felt performative. Vincent noticed, but said nothing. 15 years at Sullivan Development had taught him patience. 12 years of marriage to Howard's daughter had taught him discretion. 7 months of suspecting his wife's infidelity had taught him observation. "I'll be up soon," he promised. After Naomi returned upstairs, Vincent opened his laptop and checked the tracking software he'd installed on her phone. The location history confirmed what he already knew: 3 hours at the Wellington Hotel downtown. Room 1217, the same as last week and the week before. Vincent wasn't a violent man. His vengeance wouldn't come from his fists, but from his mind. He'd built his career creating spaces that outlived their creators. He understood that proper demolition required more planning than construction. The next morning, Vincent drove to Sullivan Development headquarters, the model secured in the back seat. The radio announced another record-breaking stock performance for the company. Howard Sullivan had built an empire, and Vincent had designed every significant structure in it. At 45, Vincent maintained the physical discipline from his military days, a past he rarely discussed. Before becoming an architect, he'd served in military intelligence, developing skills he'd kept sharp but hidden beneath his unassuming exterior. The Sullivan headquarters gleamed in the morning sun, a testament to Vincent's vision despite bearing Howard's name. As he parked, he spotted Colin Burns' Mercedes in the executive spot next to Howard's. Colin, Howard's new golden boy, 15 years Vincent's junior, with an MBA but no real-world experience or talent. Just connections, charisma, and apparently, enough appeal to seduce Naomi. Vincent carried his model through the lobby, where security guards and receptionists greeted him warmly. Despite his senior position, he'd always treated support staff with respect, unlike Howard and Colin, who barely acknowledged their existence. In the elevator, he adjusted his tie and took a deep breath. Today wasn't about confrontation. It was about confirmation. Then the real work would begin. Chapter 2. Fault Lines. The boardroom fell silent as Vincent unveiled the model of Sullivan Plaza, a revolutionary design combining sustainable architecture with cutting-edge aesthetics. Howard Sullivan studied it with narrowed eyes, while Colin immediately began pointing out perceived flaws. "The eastern support structure seems unorthodox," Colin remarked with unearned authority. "Wouldn't a traditional approach save costs?" Vincent maintained his composure. "The eastern support is actually the key innovation. It reduces materials by 30% while increasing structural integrity. I've had 3 independent engineers verify the calculations." Howard waved his hand dismissively. "It's too experimental. We're not in the business of architectural experiments, Vincent. We're in the business of profits." 15 years of this. Howard taking credit for successes while blaming Vincent for any complications. Vincent noticed the exchange of glances between Howard and Colin. Something felt different today. More final. After the meeting, Vincent retreated to his office, where Melissa Zhou, his loyal assistant of 8 years, waited with concern etched across her face. "They've called in HR," she whispered. "Third floor conference room in an hour." "What's happening, Vincent?" Vincent thanked her for the warning. Melissa knew more about the company's inner workings than even Howard did. Her father had been one of Howard's original investors before being mysteriously bought out for pennies on the dollar during a personal crisis. Vincent had hired her when no one else would, recognizing both her talent and her motivation to understand Sullivan development from the inside. "Would you mind backing up my personal design files?" Just as a precaution, Vincent asked. Melissa nodded, understanding the subtext. "Already did. External drive in your desk drawer. I also made copies of those other documents you asked me to track." Those other documents represented 3 years of methodical documentation. Howard's building code violations, safety shortcuts, permit manipulations, and tax maneuvers. None technically illegal when viewed individually, but damning when assembled correctly. An hour later, Vincent sat across from Howard, Colin, and a nervous HR representative named Dennis. The office overlooked the Sullivan Tower, Vincent's greatest design, though Howard had accepted all accolades. "We're letting you go." "Performance issues," Howard stated flatly, avoiding eye contact. Vincent nodded calmly. "Performance issues after 15 years? Colin slid a severance package across the table. "The company's direction is changing. Your designs are becoming outdated." "I see." Vincent made no move to take the envelope. "And when did my wife decide that our marriage was similarly outdated?" The room temperature seemed to drop. Howard's expression hardened. "This is a professional separation, Vincent. Keep personal matters personal." Difficult considering how intertwined they've become. Vincent stood, straightening his jacket. "I'll clear my office by end of day." As Vincent departed, he heard Colin mutter something about taking it better than expected. Little did they know that Vincent had expected this day for months. The pieces were already in motion. When Vincent returned to his office, Melissa was waiting, her eyes red but determined. "They're letting me go too. Restructuring, they claim." Vincent nodded. "Perfect timing for both of us, then." "Perfect?" "Vincent, what are you planning?" "A redesign, Melissa. Something far more permanent than Sullivan Plaza." Chapter 3: Demolition Day. Vincent drove home with a model of Sullivan Plaza in his passenger seat, the only item he'd taken from his office beyond his personal designs. The security guards had watched uncomfortably as he left, many having known him for years. One had whispered, "This isn't right, Mr. Riker," as he passed. Home was a modernist structure Vincent had designed himself, one of his first projects after leaving the military. Howard had been impressed enough to hire him, then later to introduce him to Naomi. The house represented what Vincent had once believed was a foundation for his future. Now it felt like a beautifully designed lie. He entered to find Naomi packing his suitcases, her movements efficient and detached. She barely looked up when he entered their bedroom. "Howard called you," Vincent stated. "He was concerned about how you might react." Naomi continued folding his clothes. "This is better for everyone, Vincent. A clean break. 12 years of marriage ends with my clothes and luggage I don't recognize." She finally met his gaze. "Time for a fresh start." "For me," she said coldly. She handed him a brochure for a homeless shelter. "Until you find somewhere more permanent." The calculated cruelty confirmed everything. This wasn't an impulsive decision, but a coordinated elimination. Vincent took the brochure without comment. "Your severance should help until you find something else," she continued, her voice professionally sympathetic. "Though Howard mentioned your non-compete clause will make architecture difficult for a while." Did he also mention that non-compete clauses aren't enforceable in this state? Vincent watched realization flicker across her face. "Or that I've maintained my military pension all these years. The one you thought I'd forfeited." Naomi faltered for the first time. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you and Howard might have planned this meticulously, but you built your plans on false assumptions." Vincent picked up the suitcases. "Don't bother changing the locks. I won't be back." "Where will you go?" A trace of genuine confusion crept into her voice. to finish what I started 15 years ago. Vincent drove directly to a modest apartment building across town. The unit on the top floor had been leased under his birth name, Blake Vincent Riker, for the past 5 years. A contingency he'd established when he first suspected something wasn't right at Sullivan Development. The apartment wasn't just a backup residence. It was his war room. The walls were covered with photos, documents, and connections mapping the Sullivan Empire's vulnerabilities. Howard had built his company through manipulation and strategic betrayal of partners. Vincent had spent years quietly documenting every shortcut, every code violation, every ethical breach. Melissa was waiting for him there, having used the key he'd given her months ago when he first suspected they might both need an exit strategy. "Everything's ready," she said. "Operation Aftershock can commence whenever you give the word." Vincent placed a model of Sullivan Plaza on the table and opened his laptop. "They think they've demolished my career and marriage in one day. They have no idea what real demolition looks like." He activated a program that executed a chain of pre-programmed electronic fund transfers, moving his considerable savings through a series of accounts before they could be frozen by Howard's banking connections. Then he made a call to a number few people knew existed. "General Blackwood, it's Riker." "Yes, that Riker. I'm calling in that favor." A week passed with complete silence from Vincent. No attempts to access his old accounts. No appeals to Howard for reconsideration. No desperate calls to Naomi. Just silence. Then the calls began. First a few, then dozens. Naomi's phone rang constantly with Vincent's number, but when answered, no one spoke. Howard experienced the same phenomenon. By the end of the week, they had received 93 calls between them. Frustrated and increasingly unnerved, Howard and Naomi drove to the homeless shelter from the brochure, only to discover Vincent had never arrived there. They tried his old military contacts, but no one had heard from him in years. It was Colin who finally connected the dots after a mysterious package arrived containing Vincent's dog tags and military ID. "Blake Vincent Riker," Colin read aloud. "Wait, Riker? As in..." Howard snatched the documents. "General Riker's son? That's impossible." The general's son was a classified intelligence operative who supposedly died in. Howard's face drained of color as realization dawned. "What is it?" Naomi demanded. "We need to find him. Now." Howard's hands trembled as he dialed Vincent's number again. "We may have just made the worst mistake of our lives." Chapter 4. The Ghost Architect. "Tell me again why we're hiding in a bunker beneath your apartment," Melissa said, watching Vincent calibrate equipment in what appeared to be a military-grade command center. "It's not a bunker," Vincent corrected. "It's a secure operations facility I built 5 years ago when I realized Howard was systematically removing everyone who knew too much about his methods." The underground facility hummed with technology. Multiple screens monitoring Sullivan Development properties, financial tracking software, and surveillance feeds. One monitor displayed Naomi and Howard's increasingly frantic attempts to locate Vincent. 93 calls, Melissa marveled. "That's exactly what you predicted. Howard always panics in patterns." Vincent adjusted a dial. "His father was the same way during joint operations with my father's unit. Predictable under pressure." Vincent's true background remained largely classified. The son of General Alexander Riker, he'd been recruited into a specialized intelligence unit straight out of MIT. His architectural talent wasn't just artistic, it was tactical. Vincent had designed secure facilities for government agencies before a mission gone wrong forced him to adopt a modified identity. Howard Sullivan had never known he'd hired the son of his father's military rival. By the time Vincent married Naomi, he'd fully embraced his cover. Only now, with nothing left to lose, was Vincent becoming his true self again. They received the dog tags, Melissa reported, watching another screen. Colin made the connection faster than expected. "Colin Byrne is many things, but unintelligent isn't one of them," Vincent acknowledged. "He's the only real threat in this scenario." A secure phone line rang. Vincent answered, activating a voice modulator. "Report. Phase 1 complete," said the voice of Damon Lynch, Vincent's former teammate from his military days. "Sullivan Tower's security system has been compromised. We have eyes everywhere. Vincent ended the call and turned to Melissa. Tell me about the Sullivan Foundation Gala. 2 weeks from Saturday. Every major investor, political ally, and business partner will be there. Melissa pulled up the guest list. They're announcing the Sullivan Plaza project as Howard's legacy achievement, with Colin as the new lead architect, I assume. Melissa nodded. They've already started altering your designs. The eastern support structure you innovated? They've replaced it with a conventional design that's structurally compromised if built on that particular bedrock formation, Vincent finished. I designed it that way. The true plans have a geological compensation factor that I never included in the official documentation. You sabotaged your own design. Melissa looked shocked. I created a failsafe. Howard has a history of cutting corners after final approvals. I needed leverage to ensure he built it correctly. Vincent pulled up a geological survey. The eastern side of the construction site sits on an unstable fault line that only becomes dangerous if you build using conventional support methods. So if they build it wrong, it won't collapse immediately. But the first minor earthquake or significant vibration would trigger a progressive structural failure. Vincent closed the file, which is why we're going to ensure they never break ground with those altered plans. A notification flashed on the main screen. Vincent opened a video call to see the weathered face of General Blackwood. Your father's files have been unsealed, as requested, the general said without preamble. Everything Howard Sullivan Sr. did to sabotage Alexander Riker's career and reputation. All the evidence your father could never use because of national security concerns. In the other matter, the trust fund your father established has been activated. $50 million, as specified in his will upon confirmation of your identity, plus interest. Vincent thanked him and ended the call. $50 million, Melissa whispered. My inheritance. Howard's father stole my family's reputation, and Howard stole 15 years of my career. Vincent brought up architectural renderings of a stunning new development. Now I'll use my father's money to build what Sullivan Development never could, and eliminate what they've already built. Ow! By becoming their salvation before I become their destruction. Chapter 5. The Prodigal Husband. Howard Sullivan paced his office, phone pressed to his ear. I don't care what it takes. Find him. The private investigator on the other end sounded resigned. Mr. Sullivan, we've tried everything. Blake Vincent Riker effectively disappeared 12 years ago when he became Vincent Riker. Now both identities have gone dark. Howard slammed the phone down as Naomi entered, looking haggard. Nothing. Howard collapsed into his chair. Do you have any idea what this means? Vincent is Alexander Riker's son. The same Alexander Riker my father supposedly betrayed during the Kuwait operation. What does that have to do with us? Naomi demanded. So his father was some general. Not just some general. The man who invented modern structural sabotage techniques for the military. Howard's voice dropped. And Vincent has designed every major building in our portfolio for the past 15 years. The color drained from Naomi's face. You think he compromised them? I've ordered full structural assessments of everything he designed. But if he's half as skilled as his father. Howard left the implication hanging. Colin entered without knocking, tablet in hand. We have a bigger problem. Phoenix Development just announced a revolutionary new project directly competing with Sullivan Plaza. Look who's listed as chief architect. The tablet showed a rendering of a breathtaking structure signed with Vincent's distinctive mark. Below it, the corporate leadership listed Blake V. Riker, founder and CEO. He's had a competing development company this whole time. Naomi stared at the image. Worse, Collins said. 3 of our major investors called this morning. They're pulling out of Sullivan Plaza to back Phoenix instead. They say Riker showed them geological surveys indicating our site has stability issues. Howard's phone rang. Vincent's number again. This time when Howard answered, Vincent spoke. Hello, Howard. I believe we have some unfinished business. Vincent, listen. Blake Vincent Riker, he corrected. But you can call me Mr. Riker now. I'm no longer your employee or your son-in-law. Whatever you're planning, I'm planning to build, Howard. That's what architects do. I'm extending a professional courtesy by informing you that your Sullivan Plaza project is unfeasible as currently designed. The Eastern support. We know about the fault line, Howard interrupted. We can fix it. No, you can't. Not without my specific modifications, which weren't in the official plans. And I'm afraid those designs are now proprietary to Phoenix Development. Howard gripped the phone tighter. Name your price. Vincent's laugh was cold. You fired me for performance issues, Howard. My performance now commands a much higher price than you can afford. The line went dead. Colin looked grim. The geological assessment came back. He's right about the fault line. We can't build Sullivan Plaza as planned. Howard turned to Naomi. Call him. He'll talk to you. Naomi hesitated. I'm not sure that's true anymore. He was in love with you for 12 years. Use that, Howard shouted. Was he? Naomi's voice was suddenly small. I'm not sure I ever really knew him. Later that evening, Vincent sat in an exclusive restaurant across from Aaliyah Drake, the city's most prominent real estate investor. At 40, she commanded respect throughout the industry and had never worked with Sullivan Development despite Howard's persistent overtures. I've reviewed your Phoenix proposal, Aaliyah said, studying Vincent over her wine glass. Ambitious doesn't begin to describe it. You're essentially planning to redefine the city skyline. I'm planning to correct it, Vincent clarified. Sullivan Development has prioritized appearance over substance for years. My designs will prioritize both. And your sudden emergence as Blake Riker after years as Vincent, that doesn't concern potential investors. My architectural vision hasn't changed, Ms. Drake. Only my willingness to compromise it. Vincent slid an envelope across the table. These are the structural assessments for 6 Sullivan properties built in the last decade. All have critical vulnerabilities that will require significant renovation within 5 years. Aaliyah reviewed the documents with a practiced eye. If this is accurate, Sullivan Development is sitting on a time bomb. Multiple time bombs. And I'm the only one who knows how to defuse them. As they finished dinner, Vincent received a text from Melissa, Naomi requesting meeting. Says it's urgent. Vincent's response was brief. Arrange it. The Penthouse. 2 days. Chapter 6. The Architect's Gambit. The penthouse of the Wellington Hotel, the very place where Naomi had conducted her affair with Colin, now served as Vincent's temporary base of operations. He had reserved the entire top floor, paying in cash through a shell company. When Naomi arrived, she found Vincent standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling below. He wore an impeccably tailored suit, looking nothing like the man she'd dismissed 2 weeks earlier. You wanted to see me, Vincent stated without turning. Naomi approached cautiously. Vincent, Blake, whatever you want to be called. Mr. Riker will suffice. She flinched at his formality. We need to talk about what's happening. What's happening is market correction. Sullivan Development has built its reputation on stolen designs and compromised structures. Phoenix Development will offer something better. This isn't about business, Naomi insisted. It's about us. About what Howard and I did. Now Vincent turned, his expression unreadable. There is no us, Naomi. You made that perfectly clear when you packed my bags and handed me a brochure for a homeless shelter. I didn't know who you really were. Precisely the problem. 12 years of marriage, and you never bothered to discover who I was beyond what I could provide for you and your father. Naomi's composure cracked. That's not fair. You hid your identity, your family. I protected information that was classified. But everything else, my principles, my passion, my loyalty, was genuine. Vincent approached her slowly. Can you say the same? I made a mistake with Colin. A terrible mistake. Your mistake wasn't Colin. Your mistake was believing I was dispensable. Vincent returned to the window. Sullivan Development is hemorrhaging investors. Howard's political connections are distancing themselves. Colin's attempts to modify my designs have been rejected by the Planning Commission. How do you know all this? I designed your father's security system, Naomi. Did you think I wouldn't build myself a backdoor? Tears formed in Naomi's eyes. What do you want from us? From you? Nothing. From Howard. Acknowledgement. Of what? Of what his father did to mine. Of what he did to my career. Of the corners he cut, that endangered thousands of people and buildings I designed. Vincent handed her a folder. This details the structural compromises in Sullivan Tower. The main support columns were built with substandard materials after I approved the final plans. Naomi paled as she reviewed the documents. If this is true, it is. And in the event of an earthquake measuring 5.0 or higher on the Richter scale, the tower would suffer catastrophic failure. My God, Howard's office is on the top floor. The board meets there weekly. Yes, they do. Vincent took back the folder. Phoenix Development has submitted a proposal to the city for comprehensive structural reinforcement of all Sullivan properties. At our expense. Naomi looked confused. You're helping us? I'm helping the innocent people who work in and live around those buildings. Vincent's expression hardened. As for Sullivan Development itself, my offer is simple, complete corporate dissolution. All assets transferred to Phoenix. Howard announces his retirement, citing health concerns. He'll never agree to that. This company is his life's work. It's my life's work. He just put his name on it. Vincent checked his watch. You have 48 hours to convince him. After that, I release the structural reports to the public, the properties get condemned, and Sullivan Development faces criminal negligence charges. Naomi started toward the door, then paused. You know, for what it's worth, I did love you once. No, Naomi, you loved the idea of me, the quiet architect who made your father rich and never questioned your absences. Vincent turned away. That man no longer exists. After she left, Melissa emerged from the adjoining room, where she'd been monitoring security. Think you'll convince Howard? She asked. Howard will never surrender his company, Vincent replied. But that was never the real plan. Vincent pulled up a security feed showing Naomi making a phone call in the elevator. A voice recognition program transcribed her words in real time. He knows everything, Dad. About the buildings, about the materials. We need to move now. Right on schedule, Vincent murmured. Alert Damon. It's time for Phase 3. Chapter 7. Structural Integrity. Howard Sullivan convened an emergency board meeting at 7 a.m. the next morning. The Sullivan Tower boardroom was filled with tense executives and lawyers as he explained the situation. Vincent Riker, or Blake Riker, as he's now calling himself, is threatening to destroy this company with fabricated structural concerns, Howard declared. We need to move quickly to discredit him. Colin projected documents onto the main screen. Our engineers have conducted preliminary assessments of our properties. While they haven't found evidence of imminent danger, they admit that certain anomalies exist in the structural designs. Anomalies that only the original architect could fully explain, added Patricia Winters, the company's chief legal counsel. Mr. Sullivan, I must advise caution. If these concerns are legitimate and we dismiss them, they're not legitimate. Howard slammed his fist on the table. This is corporate sabotage by a disgruntled ex-employee. Who happens to be the son of General Alexander Riker, Colin reminded the room. A man with significant governmental connections. Howard glared at him. Whose side are you on, Byrne? The side that doesn't end up in prison for criminal negligence, Colin replied evenly. I've been reviewing Vincent's personnel file. Did you know he maintained top-secret clearance throughout his employment here? The boardroom fell silent as implications sank in. What exactly are you suggesting? Howard demanded. I'm suggesting that Vincent Riker may have been more than just your architect all these years. Before Howard could respond, the building's emergency system activated. Alarms blared as the automated voice announced, Structural Integrity Alert. Please evacuate immediately using designated emergency routes. Confusion erupted as board members gathered their belongings. Howard tried to restore order. Everyone stay calm. This is obviously Riker's doing, some kind of hack into our systems. The building shuddered subtly. Small particles of dust descended from ceiling tiles. Patricia Winters stood firmly. Heck or not, I'm leaving. I suggest everyone do the same. As the room emptied, Howard's phone rang. Vincent again. What have you done? Howard demanded. I've activated the monitoring system I installed in Sullivan Tower 3 years ago, Vincent replied calmly. The one you refused to pay for officially, so I implemented it anyway. It's detecting unusual stress patterns in the eastern support columns, exactly as predicted. This is illegal. I'll have you arrested for potentially saving hundreds of lives. The system is sending its data directly to the Department of Building Safety as we speak. They're dispatching structural engineers now. The building trembled again, more noticeably this time. That wasn't an earthquake, Howard. That was material fatigue. The substandard concrete you substituted after final inspections is beginning to fail under normal stress loads. Howard looked out the boardroom windows to see people streaming out of the building onto the street below. You won't get away with this. Whatever game you're playing. This isn't a game, Vincent interrupted. It's an intervention. Sullivan Tower is becoming unsafe and will be condemned by this afternoon. Sullivan Development will face investigations into every property in its portfolio. Your company is finished, Howard. Then I'll take you down with me. You designed these buildings. Your reputation. My reputation is secure. I've already provided authorities with documentation showing my original designs were altered after approval, including your signatures on the change orders. The line went dead as another, stronger tremor shook the building. Howard finally joined the evacuation, his face ashen. By nightfall, Sullivan Tower had been evacuated and surrounded by emergency vehicles. News helicopters circled overhead as officials from multiple agencies assessed the structure. The city's Department of Building Safety had issued emergency inspection orders for all Sullivan Development properties. Vincent watched the coverage from Phoenix Development's newly established headquarters across town. Melissa and Damon monitored communications as Howard Sullivan was interviewed on live television, looking disheveled and defensive. Mr. Sullivan denies allegations of structural negligence, the reporter summarized, but sources within the department confirm that preliminary findings show significant deviations from approved architectural plans. Melissa muted the broadcast. The stock is in free fall. Sullivan Development has lost 60% of its value since markets opened. In Phoenix, Vincent inquired, up 38% after announcing the emergency reinforcement program, Damon reported. The mayor's office is calling you a public safety hero for exposing the issues. Vincent nodded, watching Sullivan Tower on the screens. Howard will try to salvage what he can. Probably attempt to sell remaining assets before they're frozen. Already happening, Melissa confirmed. 3 subsidiary companies have initiated paperwork for rapid ownership transfer. To whom? Shell corporations that ultimately trace back to Colin Byrne. Vincent smiled slightly. So Colin's making his move earlier than expected. Good. Damon looked confused. I thought Byrne was adversarial. Colin Byrne is ambitious, unethical, and sleeping with my ex-wife, Vincent acknowledged. He's also predictable and financially overextended. By attempting to acquire Sullivan assets, he's walking into the final phase of my plan. Vincent brought up documents on the main screen. These are the hidden liens I placed against all Sullivan Development projects over the past 5 years. Small, strategic investments made through various intermediaries. Individually insignificant, but collectively, you own controlling interest in the debt structure, Melissa realized. If Sullivan defaults. When Sullivan defaults, Vincent corrected, those assets don't go to Colin Byrne. They come to me. Chapter 8. Counteroffensive. Colin Byrne considered himself a master strategist. As chaos engulfed Sullivan Development, he methodically positioned himself to emerge from the wreckage with the company's most valuable assets. Howard had practically handed him control during the crisis, too consumed with saving his reputation to notice Colin's maneuvering. What Colin didn't expect was to find Vincent Riker waiting in his office at midnight. Breaking and entering now, Riker. Colin maintained his composure despite his surprise. It's not breaking when you have the access codes, Vincent replied, seated comfortably in Colin's chair. You've been busy today. 5 property transfers, 3 asset reallocations, and a very interesting wire transfer to a Cayman account. Colin poured himself a drink. I suppose you're here to gloat. You've destroyed Sullivan. Congratulations. Sullivan was destroying itself long before I intervened. I merely accelerated the timeline. Vincent indicated the chair opposite. I'm here to discuss your next move. My next move? Colin laughed. I'm salvaging what I can from this disaster. Self-preservation, while abandoning Howard and betraying Naomi in the process. You two make a perfect match. Loyalty isn't either of your strong suits. Colin's expression hardened. Let's dispense with pretense. We both know this was never about buildings. This was about Naomi choosing me over you. Vincent's smile was cold. Is that what you believe? That I orchestrated the downfall of a multi-billion-dollar corporation because my wife had an affair? He shook his head. That would be pathetic. Then what is this about? Justice. Consequences. The natural order reasserting itself. Vincent stood. Howard Sullivan built his empire by stealing other people's work. My father's, mine, countless others. You followed his example by taking what wasn't yours. Including your wife? Colin smirked. Naomi made her choice. As did you. Now you both face the consequences. Vincent placed a folder on the desk. Colin opened it to find documentation of his financial maneuvers, including the offshore transfers. How did you? I designed the Sullivan financial management system 5 years ago. Did you think I wouldn't build in monitoring protocols? Vincent circled the desk. The SEC will receive copies of these documents tomorrow morning unless you comply with my terms. Colin's arrogance faltered. What terms? Simple. The assets you've acquired return to their rightful owner, me. You resign from Sullivan Development and the industry entirely. And you never contact Naomi again. You're insane. I won't. Your alternative is federal prosecution for securities fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. Vincent headed for the door. You have until morning, Colin. Choose wisely. Meanwhile, Naomi paced her living room, watching coverage of Sullivan Development's implosion. Her phone rang. Howard again. Have you reached him? Howard demanded without preamble. No, Dad. Vincent isn't taking my calls. We need leverage. Something to force his hand. Naomi sank onto the sofa. I don't think we have any leverage left. He's outmaneuvered us at every turn. There must be something, Howard insisted. Some weakness we can exploit. The only weakness Vincent ever had was his loyalty to people who didn't deserve it. Naomi replied bitterly. And we destroyed that ourselves. Her doorbell rang. On her security monitor, she saw Melissa Joe waiting outside. I have to go, Dad. Naomi ended the call and opened the door cautiously. Melissa, this is unexpected. Mr. Riker sent me. Melissa stated professionally. He has a proposition for you. He couldn't deliver it himself. He's currently discussing similar terms with Mr. Byrne. Melissa handed Naomi an envelope. These are divorce papers. Mr. Riker is offering generous terms, including retention of this residence and a settlement that will ensure your financial security. Naomi opened the envelope with trembling hands. And if I refuse? There are no alternative terms, Mrs. Riker. Only consequences. Melissa's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, I advised him to offer you nothing. The settlement was his idea. Why would he do this after everything? He said something about honoring the person he thought you were, rather than punishing the person you turn out to be. Melissa checked her watch. You have 24 hours to sign. A courier will collect the documents tomorrow evening. After Melissa left, Naomi reviewed the settlement terms. They were indeed generous, far more than she deserved under the circumstances. A note in Vincent's handwriting was attached to the final page. Consider this my final act as your husband. Choose your next steps carefully. As dawn broke, Vincent received confirmation that Colin had accepted his terms, transferring control of all acquired Sullivan assets to Phoenix Development and submitting his resignation. By noon, Howard Sullivan announced an emergency press conference. Gathered before a crowd of reporters, Howard looked defeated. After careful consideration and in light of recent structural concerns, I am announcing my retirement and the dissolution of Sullivan Development Corporation. As questions erupted, Howard raised his hand for silence. I take full responsibility for any construction irregularities and will cooperate fully with ongoing investigations. All Sullivan Development projects will be transferred to Phoenix Development, which has committed to addressing structural issues immediately. A reporter called out, Mr. Sullivan, Will you comment on rumors that Phoenix is led by your former son-in-law, Blake Riker? Howard's jaw tightened. Mr. Riker is a gifted architect whose contributions to this city have been significant. Phoenix Development is fortunate to have his expertise. The press conference concluded abruptly when Howard appeared to suffer a minor medical episode, requiring assistance from staff. Watching from Phoenix headquarters, Vincent turned to Damon. Arrange security for Howard's residence. Discreet but effective. Damon looked surprised. You're protecting him? After everything. I'm ensuring he lives long enough to witness what comes next, Vincent clarified. Howard needs to see his legacy completely transformed before he's allowed any peace. Melissa entered with an update. Naomi signed the divorce papers. No contest, no modifications. Vincent nodded. And Colin left town this morning. One-way ticket to Singapore. He won't stay gone, Vincent predicted. His type always believes they can return and rebuild. Should we monitor him? No need. His finance and reputation are destroyed. Colin Byrne will spend the rest of his life trying to recover what he lost today. Vincent turned back to the city map displayed on the main screen. Our focus now is reconstruction, beginning with Sullivan Tower. Chapter 9, The Shadow Cast. 6 months later, the building formerly known as Sullivan Tower had been completely renovated, reinforced, and rebranded as Phoenix One. Vincent's team had worked around the clock to address the structural deficiencies while simultaneously reimagining the building's purpose. What had once been a monument to corporate excess was now a mixed-use development combining commercial space with affordable housing, educational facilities, and community resources. The transformation had been documented in architectural journals worldwide, cementing Vincent's reputation as a visionary. On the evening of the grand reopening, Vincent stood in what had once been Howard Sullivan's office, now repurposed as an architectural history museum. Among the exhibits was a detailed timeline of the building's original construction, including documentation of Howard's cost-cutting measures and their potential consequences. Quite an achievement, said a familiar voice. Vincent turned to see General Blackwood, now retired but still commanding respect in his civilian attire. My father would have appreciated the symmetry, Vincent replied. His reputation destroyed by Howard's father. Howard's legacy reclaimed by his son. The general surveyed the city through the panoramic windows. Alexander would be proud of more than just the revenge, son. This rebuilding, it's what he always believed architecture should be. Service to community, not monuments to ego. A soft chime announced another visitor. Melissa entered with a tablet displaying security feeds. Howard Sullivan has arrived as requested. Security has escorted him to the private elevator. Vincent nodded. Show him in when he arrives. After Melissa and the general departed, Vincent studied the model of Phoenix, one displayed prominently on a pedestal. His original design, now fully realized without compromise. Howard entered moments later, looking significantly older than 6 months earlier. His health had deteriorated following the collapse of his company, though his financial future remained secure thanks to terms Vincent had privately arranged. You wanted to see me, Howard stated flatly. I wanted you to see this. Vincent gestured to the museum exhibits. The complete truth, preserved for future generations. Every decision, every shortcut, every consequence. Howard surveyed the displays with resignation. Public humiliation as your final revenge. Education, not humiliation. Future architects will learn from your mistakes. Vincent approached his former father-in-law. Tell me something, Howard. When did you first realize who I really was? Too late, obviously. Howard sank into a chair. There were signs I ignored. Your military bearing. Your unexplained connections. The way you sometimes knew things you shouldn't have. Yet you never questioned it as long as I was making you rich. Howard looked up defiantly. And you never revealed yourself as long as the arrangement benefited you. We used each other, Vincent. The difference is that I never betrayed you. Even now, this building stands as a testament to what we could have accomplished together if you'd valued integrity over profit. Howard gestured to the exhibits. And Naomi? Is she featured in your museum of betrayal? Naomi made her choices. She's living with the consequences. Following the divorce, Naomi had relocated to another state. Her social standing diminished, and her relationship with Colin publicly exposed and terminated. Vincent had ensured she maintained financial stability, but had otherwise removed her entirely from his life. She asks about you sometimes, Howard mentioned. Wonders if you'll ever forgive her. Forgiveness implies continued engagement, Vincent replied evenly. I've moved beyond both of you. A subtle vibration indicated Vincent's phone. Checking it, he saw an alert from his security team. Colin Byrne had returned to the city and was attempting to access the reopening event. If you'll excuse me, Howard, it seems we have an uninvited guest. In the grand lobby, security had intercepted Colin attempting to enter with a counterfeit invitation. He was being held discreetly near the entrance when Vincent arrived. Bold move, returning on tonight of all nights, Vincent observed. Colin struggled to maintain his composure. I came to congratulate you. Professional courtesy. Your professional status was revoked months ago, along with your assets, reputation, and future in this industry. Vincent signaled security to release their hold. You're not even worth the scene your arrest would cause. You can't keep me away forever, Riker. This isn't over. Vincent studied the man who had contributed to destroying his marriage and career. Once handsome and confident, Colin now appeared desperate and diminished. It was over the moment you chose to align yourself with Howard Sullivan and betray my trust. Vincent turned to security. Escort Mr. Byrne off the premises. He's prohibited from entering any Phoenix property worldwide. As Colin was removed, Aaliyah Drake approached. Now Vincent's primary investment partner, she had become instrumental in Phoenix Development's rapid expansion. Problem? She inquired. Nothing significant. A shadow from the past. Aaliyah nodded toward the central display where Vincent's complete architectural portfolio was exhibited, including designs never built under Sullivan Development, but now planned for future Phoenix projects. Your vision is finally being realized without compromise, she observed. That must be satisfying. It's not about satisfaction, Vincent replied. It's about integrity. Buildings outlast their creators, Aaliyah. They cast shadows long after we're gone. Later that evening, as the celebration continued below, Vincent returned to the former Sullivan office, where Howard still sat contemplating the exhibits. You've won completely, Howard acknowledged. Destroyed what I built and replaced it with your own vision. What now? Now I continue building. The difference between us, Howard, is that destroying you was never my primary objective. It was simply a necessary step toward creating something better. Howard stood with effort. And the revenge? For what my father did to yours. That ledger is balanced. The truth is preserved. The rest is just business. Vincent extended his hand formally. For what it's worth, I did respect your ambition once. Howard regarded the offered hand with surprise before accepting it briefly. And I respected your talent. Should have respected the man as well. As Howard departed, Vincent remained alone in the transformed space that symbolized both his past constraints and future potential. From the windows, he could see the Phoenix logo illuminated across the city, his vision literally casting a new shadow. His phone vibrated with a text from Melissa. Naomi attempting to contact you again. Third time this month. Vincent's reply was brief and final. No response necessary. Some betrayals couldn't be forgiven. Some shadows couldn't be erased. Vincent had rebuilt his life, not by forgetting the past, but by transforming it into the foundation for something stronger. The architect had become the master builder of his own destiny, casting a shadow that would endure long after all those who had betrayed him were forgotten. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.